On the phone, Wu Qi told Lin Chushi he highly suspected that Lin Chushi was somehow caught up in some pyramid scheme and was now controlled by an illegal multi-level marketing organization. He said that he had to see if Lin Chushi was well and safe with his own eyes, and if Lin Chushi refused to meet him, he would have no choice but to report it to the police. Helpless, Lin Chushi decided it was best to inform Ruan Nanju and let him decide what the best course of action was. Surprisingly, Ruan Nanju easily agreed to Lin Chushi's request. However, I highly suggest that you don't tell him everything, advised Ruan Nanju. Unless you want to be sent to a psychiatric hospital. Lin Chushi, did such a thing happen before? Ruan Nanju pointed upstairs towards Yi Manman, who was arguing with Cheng Qianli. We personally went out of our way to have him released. Later, Lin Chushi found out that not long after Yi Manman began living in this villa, he told his family about the entire situation, without skimping on the details. As a result, his family believed that Ruan Nanju and the others were running a pyramid scheme and deceiving countless people. In order to keep Yi Manman from going further astray, they put him in a psychiatric hospital without any notice. In the end, Ruan Nanju had to use his connections to have them release Yi Manman. Lin Chushi didn't expect that to be the case. Then again, if someone else had told him about all the things he had just experienced, there was an 80% chance that he wouldn't believe them. Well then, I'll just think about what to say to him, stated Lin Chushi. Ruan Nanju hummed before growing quiet. After a moment's silence, he asked, "Do you not need to explain the situation to your parents?" Lin Chushi, "It's fine. I don't have a good relationship with my family anyways." Ruan Nanju nodded in understanding, then left. Lin Chushi's parents divorced when he was in grade school and they left him, both of them deciding to live with their new families in the end. He practically grew up with his paternal grandmother. When he left for college, his grandmother passed away, and he no longer cared for anything. He felt that everything had left him. There was nothing else tying him down to this place, no more lingering feelings left behind. This was one of his main reasons for moving into the city, because he had no fond memories of his so-called hometown. A few days later, Wu Qi actually stopped by the villa Lin Chushi was living at, planning to stay for the weekend. When he came to the doorstep, he seemed to be carrying something to defend himself with. Filled with suspicion and apprehension, he warily followed Lin Chushi into the living room. Chen Fei and the others all knew that Lin Chushi's friend was coming over. Upon seeing the other tiptoeing around with his guard up, they couldn't help but want to laugh aloud. But that brat, Cheng Qianli, was really asking for a beating. As soon as Wu Qi came in, he ran to the door in a flurry and shut it closed, before turning to Lin Chushi and hissing, "How could you just bring someone here unannounced?" Lin Chushi, Cheng Qianli, ahem, so those of us here mainly focus on building our business offline, as it is far easier to recruit capable members that way. Now then, friend, are you interested in making some easy money? Come this way. I shall teach you how to. The suspicion in Wu Qi's eyes grew deeper, and the speechless Lin Chushi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thankfully, Cheng Qianli's older brother appeared at this time. He approached the other and instantly gripped his ear, pinching hard. With a wooden expression, he turned away. Before leaving, however, he apologized to Lin Chushi and his companion. "Sorry. It appears that I forgot to lock up my family's fool." Cheng Qianli constantly yelped in pain, but he didn't dare go against his older brother. And just like that, the weeping Cheng Qianli, who felt unbelievably wronged at the unfair treatment he was receiving, was dragged upstairs by his older brother, with Toast joining in the fun, loudly whining and yowling in excitement as he trotted happily beside them. Lin Chushi tried introducing everyone to each other. Wu Qi, that just now was my friend. He really likes joking around. Anyways, these are my roommates. And this person, right here, is my friend, Wu Qi. Chen Fei and Yi Manman greeted Wu Qi with a friendly smile, before going back to doing their own things. Wu Qi inspected the house for a while, but he didn't seem to find anything particularly suspicious or concerning. Nevertheless, he still held some doubts. So he insisted on going upstairs to have a quick look. Along the way, he asked Lin Chushi whether he was taking any specific lessons or workshops to learn more about how the business operated. Lin Chushi, no, why would I be taking any lessons? I've already said it's not a pyramid scheme or some grand multi-level marketing operation. There's no shady business going on. Are you really telling the truth? Wu Qi narrowed his eyes, then why haven't you contacted me for the past month? I was sick, Lin Chushi explained. I had to stay in the hospital for a while. As a matter of fact, under normal circumstances, his injuries and symptoms would have left him recuperating in the ward for 3 to 5 months. But it might be been that the doors changed his body's constitution, allowing him to recover rather quickly. No more than a month passed before he was discharged from the hospital. The doctor who was attending him during his time there was astonished, exclaiming that Lin Chushi's case was a medical miracle. He even asked Lin Chushi if he was interested in participating in some clinical trials. His mind stubbornly set, Lin Chushi adamantly declined, and the doctor expressed great regret at this. With a heavy heart, he reluctantly let the other go. But not before telling Lin Chushi that he should immediately return and find him if he ever changed his mind about participating in some medical research studies. Lin Chushi could only smile wryly in response. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? Wu Qi's temper sparked after hearing the other's story. Lin Chushi, do you really think of me as your friend? Lin Chushi knew that he was in the wrong, so he hurriedly apologized. It took a long while before Wu Qi's anger died down. As the two continued their mindless conversation that was filled with misunderstandings and miscommunications, the entrance door to the living room was opened, once again. Ruan Nanju had come back from outside, and following behind him was a young man, seemingly no older than the age of 20. The young man looked like a childlike doll, incredibly cute and adorable. Big brother Ruan, is this a newcomer? Chen Fei asked upon seeing the visitor. Ruan Nanju briefly introduced the other person. Zhang Mian. Zhang Mian seemed to have quite the friendly and cheerful personality. He beamed at everyone and greeted them one by one. Ruan Nanju instructed, Chen Fei. You go up with him and give him a lesson first. Be sure to show him the ropes around here. Chen Fei voiced his understanding, before standing up and leading the newcomer upstairs. Lin Chushi's focus was still on the newcomer, when he suddenly realized the conversation between Ruan Nanju and Chen Fei sounded extremely fishy, especially to an outsider's ears. He instantly swiveled his head to face Wu Qi, only to find that Wu Qi's expression had long become ugly. Didn't you say you weren't taking any lessons here? Lin Chushi. Now, how exactly was he supposed to get out of this mess? Just when Lin Chushi was running out of excuses and explanations, Ruan Nanju walked in their direction. He stopped directly in front of Wu Qi and held out his hand. Ruan Nanju. Wu Qi, who was only 176 centimeters, was like a feeble mouse in the presence of Ruan Nanju, who towered at the height of 190 centimeters. He grasped Ruan Nanju's hand in his own and introduced himself, Wu Qi. I am Lin Chushi's friend. And I can assure you that I will take very good care of him. You do not have to worry about anything. He spoke very naturally, as if he had rehearsed those lines plenty of times before. He slightly raised his chin. You're also very welcome to visit here anytime. Wu Qi's voice cracked as he gave his thanks. After finishing his statement, Ruan Nanju turned to look at Lin Chushi. He nodded, then turned on his heels and left the area. For hours, Wu Qi's eyes lingered on where he last saw Ruan Nanju's figure. He didn't utter a single sound the entire time. Finally, he exhaled deeply. Now, I am officially convinced that you haven't been caught up in any schemes or shady businesses. Lin Chushi, now you believe me? Yep, Wu Qi nodded. Does someone who looks like that need to engage in shady businesses or pyramid schemes? Lin Chushi, you're saying I am not good looking enough? Wu Qi, no matter how good looking you think you are, you're still average. But him, on the other hand, is literally a national treasure. In fact, precious treasures can't even compare to him. Lin Chushi found himself unable to refute. Ruan Nanju's appearance was indeed different from those of ordinary folks. If Lin Chushi had to describe it, the other resembled a divine jade statue, flawlessly carved and sculpted to perfection. Every feature of his, from the corner of his eyes down to his sharp eyebrows, seemed to have been elegantly painted on. He was truly as beautiful as a jade, and his grandeur was simply captivating. Like a rainbow that always left people in awe at its magnificence. Although it was difficult to explain what had just happened, in any case, all of Wu Qi's suspicions were instantly dispelled. Lin Chushi made a scrumptious meal for Wu Qi the others in the villa as an apology for disappearing so suddenly. The newcomer who came with Ruan Nanju also sat at the table with them. He had a very outgoing character. Fortunately, he and Chen Fei seemed to have discussed matters in private, so he didn't ask questions that should not have been asked in front of Wu Qi. After eating, Lin Chushi saw his friend off and released his built-up tensions. He was incredibly relieved in his heart. Lin Chushi had very few friends, and Wu Qi was undoubtedly one of his closer ones. He naturally did not want their relationship to be ruined, nor did he want them to drift apart because of such a trivial matter. After seeing Wu Qi off, Lin Chushi finally had the time to chat with the newcomer, Zhang Mian. Lin Chushi realized that it was Zhang Mian's first time entering the door world, and, just like Lin Chushi, he somehow encountered Ruan Nanju. Ruan Nanju, evidently, took advantage of the time Lin Chushi was recuperating to take several trips into the door worlds. Lin Chushi simply couldn't fathom why the other would frequent the door worlds so much. Nevertheless, he had a hunch that the reason had something to do with Ruan Nanju's 11th door. Chapter 39. Are you eating vinegar? Zhang Mian appeared to have a very easygoing and friendly personality, and his innocent baby face only served to emphasize his adorable nature. Every time he smiled, two charming dimples would cutely peek out from the corners of his mouth, making him look so sweet and angelic. Everyone in the villa was rather welcoming towards him, except for Cheng Qianli. I don't like that guy one bit. The day after Zhang Mian's arrival, Cheng Qianli immediately sought out Lin Chushi to nag and whine. Like a broken record, he listed off all of his complaints and vented all of his dissatisfactions. Lin Chushi, on the other hand, had a rather good impression of Zhang Mian. Why don't you like him? Haven't you noticed that Big Brother Ruan has only been paying attention to him ever since he came? Cheng Qianli grumbled. He doesn't even take us inside the doors with him anymore. Lin Chushi grew silent. Cheng Qianli impatiently stared at Lin Chushi, waiting for the other to agree with him. Don't you think so? Not at all. Lin Chushi candidly replied. Besides, isn't it better for us if he doesn't take us with him all the time? Unless you'd rather enter the door worlds that often? Cheng Qianli. Thinking about it, that was actually true. But honestly speaking, Ruan Nanju really did treat Jong Mian rather specially. Ever since he arrived, Ruan Nanju took the other with him to the door worlds at least 3 to 4 times a week, and Jong Mian also adapted fairly well. He adjusted to the changes between reality and the door worlds very quickly. As for Lin Chushi, Ruan Nanju would simply tell him to take care of his body or get some rest. From an outsider's perspective, Ruan Nanju seemed to want to train Jong Mian, to polish him up, which would explain why he went so far as to bringing the other everywhere, risking their lives in the process. However, from Lin Chushi's point of view, Ruan Nanju's current actions were strangely odd. Yet, he couldn't exactly pinpoint where this inexplicable sense of oddity came from at the moment. One morning, Jong Mian greeted Lin Chushi out of nowhere, subtly asking whether there were any other people here that he hadn't met yet. Lin Chushi, who was eating his breakfast at the time, was more than taken aback at the other's random question. Other people? What do you mean? Jong Mian restated, I mean, are there other members in this organization? He then laughed brightly, revealing 2 lovely dimples and looking particularly cute. Have you not seen them either? Lin Chushi shook his head. Oh, Brother Ruan took me to meet some more members yesterday. Jong Mian continued, so, I was just a little curious about how many members are in our team. This matter was rather sensitive, so even if Lin Chushi was aware of it, he wouldn't be able to tell him. In any case, though, he genuinely didn't know much, since he was kept in the dark half of the time and didn't bother to ask unnecessary questions. That being said, he could only shake his head in the end, indicating he didn't know. Jong Mian hummed in understanding, and no longer probed the other for answers. Meanwhile, the others gradually began filling the open seats at the table. Each and every one of them greeted Jong Mian as they sat themselves down. No sooner, Lin Chushi was met with the most bizarre sight ever. With the exception of a few people in the room, everyone was laughing and chatting happily with Jong Mian. Cheng Fei was smiling, Yi Manman was smiling, and even Lu Yenshui was smiling. Everyone had particularly wide and brilliant smiles etched onto their faces. The strange sight left Lin Chushi tilting his head in sheer puzzlement. Excluding that brat, Cheng Qianli, the only other person in the room who didn't smile when he saw Jong Mian was the ever-expressionless Cheng Yixi. Lin Chushi was at an utter loss. For a while, he couldn't process the situation. He didn't know what came over everyone in this room. Ruan Nanju and Jong Mian were still working closely together for the next couple of weeks, with both individuals simultaneously disappearing for long periods of time. One day, Cheng Qianli approached Lin Chushi in private and asked him, "Are you eating vinegar?" Lin Chushi was busy browsing the forum at the time. Having heard Cheng Qianli's question in the passing, his first response was, "Eating vinegar? What kind of vinegar? Am I supposed to be eating vinegar right now? Did you guys make dumplings or something?" Cheng Qianli, Lin Chushi, are you okay? Seeing that Lin Chushi truly didn't understand him, Cheng Qianli clarified, aren't you frustrated or annoyed that Big Brother Ruan is only paying attention to that newcomer? I mean, the first one who did extremely well in the door world and the first one Big Brother Ruan ever acknowledged and paid special attention to was obviously you. But now dumbfounded, Lin Chushi replied, "It's not like we're dating or anything though. Are you saying that the amount of attention he gives people should be on a first-come, first-served basis?" Cheng Qianli was stumped. Are you seriously not jealous? Lin Chushi stared at Cheng Qianli skeptically, before suggesting, would you like for me to call your older brother and ask him to take out that loose screw in your head? No thanks, blurted Cheng Qianli. At the mention of his older brother, Cheng Qianli instantly grew pale in the face, and, within seconds, he turned around and slipped away. Who knew whether Cheng Qianli went to talk to Ruan Nanju about the matter, but after they finished eating their dinner, Ruan Nanju unexpectedly called Lin Chushi over to the corridor. As he lit a cigarette, he offered one to Lin Chushi. Lin Chushi politely declined. "I have liver cancer." Though, admittingly, he had completely forgotten about his own liver cancer up until now. "Oh, sorry." Ruan Nanju then put out his cigarette. "Bear with it for just a little longer." Lin Chushi, huh? Ruan Nanju. "It should be no more than a week." Lin Chushi, he couldn't keep up with what the other was saying. Ruan Nanju no longer spoke. As the light in his eyes grew colder, he turned to look at Zhang Mian, who was smiling cheerfully, relaxedly chatting with everyone in the room. He then raised his hand and tenderly rested it on Lin Chushi's head for but a moment, before silently turning on his heels and walking away. If Lin Chushi was only slightly confused at first, he was utterly bewildered by the end. Even after replaying their brief interaction in his mind countless times, he still didn't have a single clue as to what Ruan Nanju was talking about. Because of the frequent trips he had taken to the door worlds without a break, Zhang Mian's body seemed to be on the verge of collapse, barely able to withstand the relentless perils of the door worlds. His most recent trip was by far the worst, with him being sent to the hospital for his injuries. Everyone in the villa paid him a visit and expressed their heartfelt admiration for him. Chen Fei and Lin Chushi both visited to the hospital together. Before making their way inside, Chen Fei bought a basket of fruits at the gate of the hospital. Although Lin Chushi wanted to be the one to buy it, he was blocked by Chen Fei. "Don't buy it." Chen Fei stopped him. "Your role in this is different, is it not?" Lin Chushi, role? Chen Fei momentarily froze at the sight of Lin Chushi's perplexed expression. "Brother Ruan didn't tell you anything?" Lin Chushi. "Tell me what?" Right now, Lin Chushi truly felt that everyone's behavior was even odder than usual. "Forget it, it's nothing serious." Chen Fei seemed to have an epiphany after seeing the dazed look on Lin Chushi's face. Sighing heavily, he dismissed it with the wave of his hand. "Give it one more week. It'll be over by then." Lin Chushi. "Seriously, what are you even talking about?" He was beyond baffled at this point. Fortunately, Zhang Mian's injuries weren't life-threatening. When Chen Fei and Lin Chushi went to see him, they bumped into Ruan Nanju, who was sitting by the hospital bed, watching over the other. Upon seeing Chen Fei and the other enter the ward, Zhang Mian smiled weakly. Chen Fei immediately began pampering the other, inquiring about his well-being and asking whether he was comfortable. He even expressed great worry for the other, saying that if he truly could not handle the risk anymore, he should let Brother Ruan know, although this was a necessary step for all newcomers wanting to join the organization. They could also make an exception for him and let him in through the back door. Zhang Mian insisted that he could still keep up with Ruan Nanju's pace, and expressed that he hoped to become an official member of the team as soon as possible. Hearing this, Chen Fei smiled in deep appreciation, revealing that they hadn't come across such a capable newcomer with great potential like him in quite a long time. "You'll surely be the backbone of our team in the future." Lin Chushi, who was quietly listening to them from the side, didn't dare utter a word. Compared to the Zhang Mian, who not only had the resolve to enter through the door worlds but the ability to pass through advanced boss levels with flying colors, he was like a headless chicken, merely scrambling around trying to defeat low-tiered monsters in the novice village. After checking up on Zhang Mian, Lin Chushi thought that days like now would persist for a long while. After all, Ruan Nanju seemed especially interested in Zhang Mian. However, he certainly didn't expect that 6 days after Jong Mian had returned to the villa from the hospital, he suddenly vanished into thin air. That morning, Lin Chushi went downstairs to have breakfast as usual, but he didn't find a trace of Jong Mian. As he waited, he noticed everyone else acting normally, as if nothing was out of the ordinary. What happened to Jong Mian? I haven't seen him at all today for some reason? Munching on the pancakes Cheng Yixi made, Chen Fei casually replied, he escaped last night. Escaped? Lin Chushi was stunned. What do you mean he escaped? It wasn't like they were some sort of trafficking organization, so what in the world did he mean by he escaped? Chen Fei nonchalantly responded, it's just as I said. He simply couldn't stand working like a dog under Brother Ruan anymore, so he fled. Lin Chushi. Why did he feel like this wasn't the full story, like he was still missing something very important? Just then, Ruan Nanju happened to come downstairs. Ever so naturally, he slid into the seat beside Lin Chushi and grabbed a plate of pancakes, taking big, slow bites and chewing relaxedly. Lin Chushi stared at him in confusion the whole time, countless questions running through his mind. At long last, Ruan Nanju finished eating his pancakes. After wiping his hands and mouth, he carefully explained, he came to infiltrate us. Infiltrate? Lin Chushi was struck speechless. He's with White Deer. Ruan Nanju continued, our dear friend, Li Dongyuan. He always had a way with words and people, always speaking so eloquently and tactfully. But to think the other had calculated every action, it was exactly like that person. Everything seemed to click in that instant, and Lin Chushi finally understood what was going on in that moment. His eyes widened and incredulity was written all over his face. He simply couldn't believe it. Li Dongyuan? That man was Li Dongyuan? Ruan Nanju gave a brisk nod. Lin Chushi. Ruan Nanju warned, the matter isn't over just yet, so be sure not to reveal anything. Everyone at the table readily nodded. With that mystery now solved, Lin Chushi soon figured out the reason they were always smiling at the sight of Jong Mian. Ruan Nanju fetched out a handful of slips of paper from his pocket. Those small notes were awfully familiar to those who had seen them previously. In fact, anyone who had laid eyes on such notes would never able to forget them for as long as they lived. After all, those were the one and only clues to the worlds beyond the doors. As of this very moment, several clues were piled together in the center of Ruan Nanju's palm, as though they were being showcased. Lin Chushi stared at the pile of notes for a long time and had nothing to say. To think the man came to us as a spy, only to be worked like a dog. I suppose housing an infiltrator does have its perks. Point 2. So then, what the hell was he here for in the first place? Lin Chushi couldn't comprehend Li Dongyuan's thought process. To find someone. Chen Fei directed a meaningful grin at Ruan Nanju. He was looking for Zhu Meng. Lin Chushi, cough, cough, cough. Nearly choking to death on his saliva, he spluttered everywhere. By the time he realized he couldn't find her at all, he was already mercilessly exploited by Brother Ruan. Completely squeezed dry, having grasped he had long screwed up and that the situation wasn't looking too good for him, he stole the box in Brother Ruan's room and escaped. Chen Fei sniggered. Let's hope he truly doesn't believe the case he stole holds a real clue. Ruan Nanju's lips curled up into a callous sneer. Having caught sight of that cold smile on his face, Lin Chushi suddenly recalled Ruan Nanju's face after he discovered Li Dongyuan deceived them by giving them a counterfeit key. The chilling expression currently marking his face was nearly identical to the one he wore back then. So, that's what was going on. Why didn't anyone tell me? Cheng Qianli was pissed after learning about the entire truth. It's not fair that you guys got to hog all the fun. Why didn't I also get a role in this? At his question, Chang Yixi shot an impassive glance at Cheng Qianli. Frighteningly deadpan, he bluntly responded, because your IQ is beyond saving, making you completely unqualified to carry out the plans. Cheng Qianli, Cheng Yixi, you have something to say? Feeling extremely wronged, Cheng Qianli dejectedly shook his head and lowered his head again, tearfully nibbling on his pancakes. Cheng Qianli and Lin Chushi seemed to be the only people in the villa who were unaware of the whole situation. According to their words, Cheng Qianli was, to put it simply, too stupid to handle such matters. But if that was the case, did that mean they were also doubting his own intelligence? While Lin Chushi brooded over being grouped together with the simple-minded Cheng Qianli, Ruan Nanju, who seemed to have read his thoughts, assured, there just wasn't enough time. Lin Chushi, my ass. There was more than enough time to tell me. Although Zhang Mian had disappeared, their job wasn't over just yet. After all, they still had to make it seem as though they were immensely furious that Zhang Mian ran away with the note. And with that, Obsidian, the official organization led by Ruan Nanju, began their counterattack and started investigating Zhang Mian's whereabouts. Of course, the drama didn't play out for long in the end. Shortly afterwards, Li Dongyuan of White Deer discovered that the note he stole was a complete fake. On top of that, he was now well aware that his identity had long been exposed and he was merely being used as free labor for weeks on end. Even though he didn't find Zhu Meng in the end, the fact that he was still made a fool of and disgracefully played like a fiddle infuriated him. Li Dongyuan angrily phoned Ruan Nanju and began attacking and cursing him relentlessly. When all of a sudden, Ruan Nanju casually mentioned that Zhu Meng was there. In an instant, that raging, cursing demon transformed into a respectful and sweet gentleman. Li Dongyuan affectionately purred, "Ah, my dear Meng. How old are you? Are you married or not? Let's meet up, my dear. I fell in love with you at first sight." Lin Chushi, who was present at the time, grew goosebumps all over after hearing Li Dongyuan's sickly sweet voice that dripping with honey. Right away, Ruan Nanju set the phone to mute. God knows how long Li Dongyuan was blabbering to himself before he realized. To think he actually fell for Zhu Meng. Lin Chushi glanced at the indifferent Ruan Nanju before him, and suddenly felt a deep sense of pity and remorse for Li Dongyuan's doomed love story that would never come to fruition. "You don't think Zhu Meng is good enough?" questioned Ruan Nanju. "She's perfect." Lin Chushi unhesitatingly corrected himself. When all was said and done, that very Zhu Meng was literally right in front of him, so he couldn't possibly badmouth the other. Who wouldn't fall in love with Zhu Meng? Then who's better, Zhu Meng or me? Ruan Nanju's way of thinking was a tad strange. Lin Chushi has certainly seen countless people compare themselves to others. But this is the first time he's ever seen someone do so with himself. Confronted with Ruan Nanju's solemn expression, he could only tactfully express that each of them had their own merits. And there was no need to make any comparisons between the two. Besides, no matter who was better, they were ultimately one and the same person. Ruan Nanju hummed in satisfaction before walking away. At a loss for words, Lin Chushi simply stared at his retreating back, genuinely wondering whether the man was okay in the head. Ruan Nanju seemed to have made Li Dongyuan's life extremely miserable. A living hell, to be precise. When Li Dongyuan first took the note, he mistakenly believed it to be genuine hint and ended up accepting a job request. Yet, that wasn't the worst of it. As a matter of fact, the note's contents coincidentally corresponded with the circumstances of the door world he had entered, and he nearly met a tragic end due to the unexpected turn of events. After that, Li Dongyuan began harassing Ruan Nanju with phone calls every day, personally attacking him for this grudge. However, each time he called, Ruan Nanju would threaten to have Zhu Meng block him. Thereupon, Li Dongyuan would give up. From this alone, it was concluded that Li Dongyuan was, indeed, a love-sick man who was deeply infatuated with a woman he had never before met in real life. Lin Chushi felt pity for him, but he couldn't help but want to see his expression the moment he realized his lovely Zhu Meng was the cold man currently in front of Lin Chushi. Thanks to Li Dongyuan, they managed to obtain a lot of clues for the door worlds. Because Lin Chushi didn't exactly know how these clues worked, Chen Fei explained it to him. Under normal circumstances, people with notes would be sent to separate door worlds. In other words, at most, only one person who holds a clue would generally appear in every world. Of course, there were exceptions to this. However, Chen Fei did not elaborate on those specific exceptions. Presumably, they only appeared under very rare, special circumstances. Now, people with notes usually entered the door that corresponded to the hint they received. That being said, those slips of paper were quite vital to one's survival. However, clues were also divided by the level of difficulty. Take, for instance, the recent period in time when Ruan Nanju strung Li Dongyuan along for a wild goose chase, working him to the bone. All the doors they entered were relatively easy and lower in level, so the respective door clues were also fairly simple and lower in level. On the other hand, if Lin Chushi wanted to enter his sixth door, he would have to use the note Ruan Nanju previously obtained in the fifth door. If he ended up bringing a lower-level hint obtained in the second door to his sixth door, there's a possibility that the hint would not correspond to that door's theme, rendering it utterly useless. It was for this very reason Ruan Nanju frequently picked up requests. In order to ensure the safety of his next clients, he constantly had to enter the door worlds to receive more hints. The risks and dangers associated with this job were no joke. Fortunately, Ruan Nanju was already well versed in this area. Li Dongyuan had been made a complete ass of, having been shamefully outsmarted and viciously plotted against, so it was reasonable to say that White Deer and Obsidian now held a deep enmity towards each other. The only thing keeping Li Dongyuan from shedding all pretenses and waging an all-out war against Ruan Nanju was Zhu Meng. In fact, Li Dongyuan even subtly indicated that he wasn't against any collaborations, and that he would gladly cooperate with them, so long as Zhu Meng was always around. Sounds good. Ruan Nanju apathetically agreed. Li Dongyuan was someone who had already passed his 8th door, so his qualifications and skills were more than just satisfactory. He certainly wasn't one to be underestimated. With that in mind, it wasn't necessarily a disadvantage to have someone of his caliber as an ally. As for whether the other would ever get to see Zhu Meng, it all depended on his mood. After resting for 3 full months, Lin Chushi was almost fully recovered. Having been unemployed for quite a while, he was rather worried for his livelihood, so he planned to find a temporary job. Yet, who could have known that Ruan Nanju would suddenly ask him for his card and transfer $500,000 into his account? Lin Chushi stared blankly at shocking amount that had popped up as a message, and stammered, "N Nanju, what's this for?" Ruan Nanju, living expenses. Lin Chushi, aren't I supposed to be responsible for my own living expenses? Ruan Nanju, naturally, this isn't merely for nothing. A client of mine is about to enter her next door, and I plan on bringing you along with us. Lin Chushi, you're bringing me along with you? He felt a tad awkward, but I am afraid it'll just drag you down. Before defeating the boss of any game, you always have to gain more experience points and level up your character. Ruan Nanju continued, in the same sense, the more you enter the door worlds, the more experience you'll gain and more accustomed you'll become to those situations. Lin Chushi, he dubiously glanced at Cheng Qianli, who was currently reading a horror novel with an ugly expression, his face cringing and distorting ever so often. Ruan Nanju. Don't take Cheng Qianli as an example. Upon hearing his name being mentioned by Ruan Nanju, Cheng Qianli turned his head around in question. Big brother Ruan, did you call me? A lying Ruan Nanju. I am just praising you. A pleased Cheng Qianli. Oh, ehehehe. Lin Chushi could barely look at Cheng Qianli's foolish face without feeling awfully embarrassed for the boy. Just how could he be so stupid? Although it was only inevitable that he was overcome with a sense of unease and hesitation, Ruan Nanju's composed attitude managed to reassure Lin Chushi and dispel any lingering doubts he had in his heart. Now that the matter with Lin Chushi was completely settled, Ruan Nanju took him to meet the client the following afternoon. Lin Chushi had originally thought the client would be an ordinary person, but he certainly never imagined it would be Xu Xiaocheng, who he had previously met in the second door world. Yes, the very Xu Xiaocheng who was, in reality, the hottest female celebrity making headlines right now, Tan Zhaozhao. Unlike the excessively meek Xu Xiaocheng of the door worlds, the Tan Zhaozhao of the real world was a gorgeous, mature woman who exuded confidence and sex appeal. Her thick, long hair cascaded down her back in gentle waves, and her elegant scarlet dress hugged the curves of her hourglass body, emphasizing her bewitching beauty and turning heads. Her presence was tremendously overwhelming. It was difficult for others to compete head-to-head with her. However, Ruan Nanju wasn't in the slightest inferior to her. As the two sat side by side one another, they painted a dangerously seductive and stunningly regal picture for onlookers, attracting even more attention. You're as handsome and impeccable as always. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider entering the entertainment industry? This was the first sentence that came out of Tan Zhaozhao's mouth. There's nothing to reconsider if the entertainment industry hasn't reached out to me in the first place. Ruan Nanju casually dismissed. Now, this here is someone you've met before, Yu Linlin. From the very beginning, Tan Zhaozhao didn't even bother glancing at Lin Chushi. That was until she heard Yu Linlin's name. Almost immediately, she directed all of her attention to Lin Chushi. The look in her eyes became ever so gentle as she reminisced about their shared experience in the door world. You're much cuter now than in the door world. Lin Chushi, thank you. As a full-fledged adult male, he wasn't that happy at being called cute by a girl. He's coming in with us, Ruan Nanju said. Is that fine with you? If it's no problem for you, it's certainly no problem for me, Tan Zhaozhao replied. Once again, I look forward to our cooperation. Ruan Nanju nodded. The two began discussing business amongst themselves. From negotiating prices to arranging who would be holding onto the door clue. After they finished deliberating and came to an agreement, Tan Zhaozhao invited them out for a meal. It was quite obvious that Tan Zhaozhao was particularly interested in Lin Chushi. All of their talks during the meal revolved around Lin Chushi. At this point, Ruan Nanju seemed rather upset. He interrupted Tan Zhaozhao in the middle of her chat and brusquely stated, "If you have any questions, just ask me. Everyone else is merely cooperating with you under my orders. There's no need to engage in small talk and interrogate about their life." Although Tan Zhaozhao's lips were curved up, her eyes weren't smiling at all. But I want to get to know Linlin better. Ruan Nanju put down his knife and fork. I am full. Lin Chushi, but you only took one bite of the steak in front of you. Tan Zhaozhao, Ruan Nanju, you're honestly so petty. At any rate, once Ruan Nanju said that he was full, that was the end of it. There was no room to argue. And there was nothing else that could be done. Yet, the moment they exited the steakhouse, Ruan Nanju dragged Lin Chushi over to a nearby restaurant and ordered a table's worth full of dishes. Lin Chushi, I thought you were full? Ruan Nanju, I became hungry again. Lin Chushi, just how can you speak so shamelessly? Ruan Nanju was so childish at times. Rather than interacting with a grown man, Lin Chushi felt as though he was pampering a spoiled child and going along with their whimsical wishes. Lin Chushi sighed helplessly, but no longer dwelled on the issue. As they ate, Ruan Nanju revealed that Tan Zhaozhao was treated differently from his other clients. Generally, whenever they picked up requests, they would not meet with the clients face to face in the real world. However, Tan Zhaozhao was the only exception. She was originally introduced to him by a mutual acquaintance. Not to mention her identity and status was a bit more special than most people, which is why he interacted with her in real life. But if you don't meet up your clients, how do you know that you'll enter the same door as them? This was the only point Lin Chushi couldn't seem to wrap his mind around. Ruan Nanju took out a few silver bracelets from his pocket and said, because of this, the silver bracelets looked quite ordinary, other than the indecipherable runes carved into them. Lin Chushi didn't recognize any of the scrawled characters. Slowly reaching out, he lightly touched one of the ornaments when a glacial sensation sparked at his fingertips, running down his entire arm. The frostiness from the bracelet made it seem as though it was crafted out of blazing ice. This bracelet started Lin Chushi. Did you get it from inside the door? Ruan Nanju hummed. From one of the worlds. Lin Chushi muttered, I see, before withdrawing his hand. One can usually request assistance in the underground forum, but in order for us to receive a task, the other party must first pay a large sum of money for a security deposit. Ruan Nanju explicated. In addition to the security deposit, the other party must pay a service fee, which would then be refunded to the client once the client returns the bracelet. Lin Chushi, are you trying to dominate the industry value chain or something? Ruan Nanju spread out his palm wide and shrugged, life isn't free. It's only natural that we need to make a livelihood as well. We wouldn't want to end up destitute after all. That was quite reasonable. Lin Chushi nodded to himself. But $500,000 is too much. When Lin Chushi was about to say he didn't need that much money, he was cut off by Ruan Nanju. That's the price for your life. You're saying your precious life's worth far less than a measly $500,000? Lin Chushi was struck dumb. Ruan Nanju continued on. Every time someone enters through those doors, they're putting their life at a huge risk. There's even the possibility of them never making it out alive. Even after they die, they still wish to leave something behind for the living people in the real world, the people they wish to protect. Such was the truth. Although Lin Chushi himself didn't necessarily have a care for the world, given that he didn't really have any other ties that held him down to this place anymore. He understood where Ruan Nanju was coming from. Those who knew they were going to die would always worry about the people around them. Their children, their partners, their parents. It was only natural that if they died, they'd still want to continue protecting those people. Even if the last thing they did was leave their loved ones with everything they gained in life to secure their livelihood. Taking that into account, Lin Chushi gladly accepted Ruan Nanju's generosity. This will be Tan Zhaozhao's third door. We will be entering in a week's time. Ruan Nanju added, I will notify you about the clue tomorrow morning. Lin Chushi grunted in understanding. It'll be a pleasure working with you. Ruan Nanju extended his hand towards Lin Chushi. The pleasure is all mine. I look forward to us finally working together. Chuckling, Lin Chushi received the other's hand in his own. The past few times, Ruan Nanju merely brought Lin Chushi along with him into the door worlds. It was he who was helping Lin Chushi. journal can be used for. Lin Chushi grunted in assent. Lin Chushi used up all of his time in the coming days to research more about the clue they received. Yet, it didn't matter how much he scoured the web, for there wasn't much information on the Woman of the Rain in the first place. This painting had long been banned from art galleries and prohibited from exhibition, on the grounds that whenever this painting was put on display, viewers would experience emotional distress and, in many cases, hallucinations. It was said that the original artist of this portrait suffered from severe mental disorders, which led to the manifestation of this haunting painting imbued with all of her afflictions. Of course, the official statement released to the public was that these incidents were merely attributed to the fact that the artist used harmful products, contaminated paints, and an unsanitary canvas when painting. But whether this was the truth, no one knew the answer. However, this time they would officially be working together as equals. Although Lin Chushi couldn't help but feel a tad apprehensive, that feeling of worry was eclipsed by the inexplicable and faint rush of excitement that stirred within the pit of his stomach. Indeed, the worlds beyond those doors were cruel and bleak, insufferably frightening and dreadful, but knowing that there were people around who cared for him, that there was always someone who'd stand right beside him through thick and thin, all of his fears vanished. It didn't matter whether he stood before a god or a devil, or whether he was confronted by death itself. It was as if all the despair in the world ceased to exist, replaced by a halo of hope heroically glistening in the desolate shadows, like a pure, beautiful flower that would forever bloom in the dark pits of hell. Chapter 40. The fourth door. After discussing matters with Tan Zhaozhao, Ruan Nanju immediately began looking into the contents of the note to Tan Zhaozhao's door. This was to be Tan Zhaozhao's third door. With that in mind, it shouldn't be too difficult to solve, but taking precautions never hurt. After all, it was always better to safe than sorry. As of right now, the note before them had 5 words written on it: the Woman of the Rain. Only after he finished investigating more about the hint did Ruan Nanju inform Lin Chushi on what was to be expected, briefly explaining the background of the Woman of the Rain. The Woman of the Rain was a portrait painted by a Ukrainian artist. This painting depicted a ghostly pale lady, donning a large black hat. Her eyes were lightly closed, and droplets of rain fell from the brim of her hat, trickling down her cheeks. Her appearance made it seem as though she had just attended a funeral, for her garments were blacker than a silhouette, and the expression on her face was ever so solemn, cold and detached, frostier than a wintry night shrouded by dark clouds. Lin Chushi had seen this painting before. Granted, what he saw was only a replica. However, he was still quite familiar with this art piece. Although the mysterious woman in the portrait had her eyes closed, the longer one continued to observe her, the wider her eyes seemed to become, opening ever so gradually and staring directly into one's soul. The tone of the whole piece was dark and ominous, with the cooler colors of the flowing rain blending with the inky shades of the dreary clouds, creating a touch of disharmony and anxiety, a sense of melancholy and dread. If not all, the history of this painting was quite peculiar. This work of art was bought by 3 separate individuals, only to be returned by all 3 in the end. According to the reports, all buyers claimed that after they purchased the painting, odd things began to happen. The feeling of being followed by that lady in black kept plaguing them. She was like a shadow that attached itself to one's body. Even in their dreams, they could never escape her haunting figure. Every night, the woman appeared to be getting closer and closer to them. Nearer and nearer at long last. The buyers weren't able to bear that tormenting situation anymore, so they anxiously returned the painting to its original owner. Indeed, this surreal painting gave off nothing but bad vibes. Lin Chushi then closed the webpage after reading. Ruan Nanju, who was sitting beside him, handed him a silver bracelet and told him to wear it on his wrist for the next few days. In addition, he gave the other a warning, reminding him to remove and hide the bracelet immediately upon entering the door, so that others won't catch sight of it. Lin Chushi asked, "Are you worried that other organizations might find out about it?" "Well," replied Ruan Nanju, "while that is one of the reasons, there's actually another reason for doing this." Lin Chushi wondered. "What other reason?" Ruan Nanju glanced at the bracelet, because the bracelet is cursed. Lin Chushi. Ruan Nanju continued, "Oh, by the way, the earring that you're currently wearing is also cursed. Its effects aren't as intense though." Lin Chushi reflexively touched the ruby stud on his earlobe. After it had been forcibly pierced into his ear by Ruan Nanju, he had completely forgotten about it, as if it never existed in the first place. To say he was a tad surprised at Ruan Nanju's statement would be an understatement. "It's cursed?" Ruan Nanju responded, "Yes. But you have nothing to worry about. Aside from the fact that it can be used to find people, it's practically useless." Having been reassured by Ruan Nanju, Lin Chushi nodded in relief. Speaking of cursed items, Lin Chushi had yet to find out how to use the diary Ruan Nanju brought out of the previous door. The one thing he did figure out was that the journal couldn't be used as to record stuff down like a normal notebook, because anything written on it would magically vanish. Ruan Nanju said, "There's no need to fret. You have plenty of time to find out what the journal can be used for." Lin Chushi grunted in assent. Lin Chushi used up all of his time in the coming days to research more about the clue they received. Yet, it didn't matter how much he scoured the web, for there wasn't much information on the Woman of the Rain in the first place. This painting had long been banned from art galleries and prohibited from exhibition, on the grounds that whenever this painting was put on display, viewers would experience emotional distress and, in many cases, hallucinations. It was said that the original artist of this portrait suffered from severe mental disorders, which led to the manifestation of this haunting painting imbued with all of her afflictions. Of course, the official statement released to the public was that these incidents were merely attributed to the fact that the artist used harmful products, contaminated paints, and an unsanitary canvas when painting. But whether this was the truth, no one knew the answer. What became of this painting at present time has remained a complete mystery. But, allegedly, it's been locked away, far from everyone's sight. Tan Zhaozhao was also aware of the hint pertaining to her door. Her state of mind was imperturbable, and her being confident and composed. She was like a completely different person from the Xu Shaocheng of the previous door world, who would cry and scream at the smallest things possible, from the light breeze of the wind to the slight rustle of the grass. Tan Zhaozhao professed that it was all a part of her act, at which Ruan Nanju scoffed contemptuously. "What are you laughing at?" Blushing red with humiliation, Tan Zhaozhao flew into a fit of rage. Ruan Nanju retorted, "What? Am I not allowed to laugh if someone cracks a funny joke?" Tan Zhaozhao humphed loudly, before saying, "Are you going to dress up as a woman this time?" Ruan Nanju, "I won't dress up this time." Tan Zhaozhao, "Why not?" She seemed awfully disappointed. Ruan Nanju, "Just because." As the two continued on with their exchange, Lin Chushi absently poked at his ice cream at the side, scooping up mouthfuls from time to time. Moments later, Tan Zhaozhao shifted her gaze towards him and endearingly pouted, Lin, please convince him to dress up as woman." Lin Chushi, "Is it really that big of a deal whether or not he dresses up as a woman?" Tan Zhaozhao heaved a heavy sigh, "Ah. Of course it is. It's such a pity to not wear women's clothes, considering how great he looks in them." Lin Chushi, Why did he even believe for a second that Tan Zhaozhao might be had a legitimate reason? The moment to enter the doors was close at hand. Because it was only her third door, Tan Zhaozhao's sense of time for the door's arrival wasn't particularly the best. As a result, Lin Chushi, who was sleeping peacefully in bed one night, was started awake at an ungodly hour. A feeling of alarm and trepidation suddenly washed over him, and before he knew it, the bedroom he was familiar with began distorting into another image. Sure enough, as soon as Lin Chushi opened his eyes, he saw that the walls around him had vanished. And in their place were 12 portentous doors. The 12 doors formed a ring around him, with him positioned at the very heart. Lin Chushi climbed up from his bed and quickly changed his clothes. Before approaching the third door, he took a long, deep breath, steeling his heart for what was to come, then pulled open the door. With a flash, the scenery changed. Once the waves of nausea receded and his vision cleared, he became fully conscious of the new world he arrived at. Towering before Lin Chushi's eyes was a glorious ancient castle. Seemingly centuries old, it stood imposingly tall and upright in the midst of a remote field, enclosed by impregnable iron fences. Lin Chushi stood all alone beside a patch of shrubs. The barren grasslands extended as far as the eye could see. There wasn't a single soul in sight. Having kept Ruan Nanji's instructions in mind, the first thing he did after entering this world was take the bracelet off of his wrist. Unlike the previous times, where he somehow ran into other people within the first few minutes of his arrival, this was the first time he was truly by himself, completely isolated and unaccompanied, after entering the door world. Fortunately, he hadn't been met with any horrors or tragedies upon arriving here, and he could only hope that his luck lasted until he encountered other living people. As he made his way towards the gates of the castle, Lin Chushi took in the somber scenery. The castle grounds were beyond derelict and desolate, surrounded by unkempt bushes that hadn't been trimmed in what seemed like forever and wild weeds that had grown uncontrollable. The greenery was so dense, with ivies sprouting all over, thickly enwreathing everything in its path and obstructing visitors' line of sight. Past the iron fence existed boundless, stifling fog, treacherously cloaking the area and seeming to threaten intruders. Just a mere glance left visitors ill at ease, wanting to stay far away from the foreboding fog. Lin Chushi gradually bridged the distance between him and the castle doors. Yet, before he could step foot inside, he heard piercing wails of lamentation coming from within. "Help! Help me!" It was the cry of a young woman. Having lost her grasp on reality, she seemed to have collapsed to the ground, her mind completely broken. Her screams were so wretched and hoarse, excruciatingly unbearable to the ears of others. "Can you just stop crying? You've been crying like this for over an hour," someone in the crowd berated, their patience for her agonizing squawking running thin. "If you don't believe us, then go out and have a look. See for yourself whether you can actually leave this place." Lin Chushi instantly recognized the situation when he heard this. It was a common and inevitable occurrence that happened every time he entered the door worlds a newcomer had appeared. Those who've arrived to this world for the first time were always in a state of delirium and denial, always trying to rationalize the impossible. However, their reactions were only expected. As he thought this to himself, Lin Chushi pushed open the massive doors to the castle and strolled inside. As of right now, only 5 individuals had gathered in this world, lounging around or standing idly in the hall of the first floor of the castle. Despite seeing Lin Chushi enter, they didn't greet him. They either looked at him aloofly or eyeballed him warily. Lin Chushi casually found a spot to sit down and began scanning his surroundings. Within moments, he found what he had been searching for in the crowd. Located at a distance from the crowd, was an attractive man wearing a simple t-shirt and denim jeans. Although the man was simply sitting at an inconspicuous corner, he still attracted quite a lot of attention. Just his breathtaking appearance alone was enough to enrapture onlookers, and that amorous teardrop-like beauty mark at the corner of his eye only emphasized his sensual charm. The expression on his face was cold and his aura was oppressive, incredibly unapproachable, yet the people around him couldn't help but throw glances his way ever so often. Only now did Lin Chushi vaguely understand why Ruan Nanju preferred to cross-dress. Though beautiful women were naturally eye-catching, the sight of them was fairly common. However, a beautiful man of his caliber was a rare sight that was bound to draw unnecessary attention. Not only would he attract attention from other people, but there was even the possibility of him attracting the wrong attention from things he shouldn't. Ruan Nanju perceived the other's gaze. He cast Lin Chushi a hard, indifferent glance. Before looking away, the bawling girl was obviously a newcomer, someone who had just arrived in this world. She couldn't seem to accept the illogical situation she had been thrown into, and could only lament her wretched fate with bitter cries. She slouched on the sofa, and her tears overflowed from her red eyes filled with terror and suspicion. She constantly peered at the others and fretfully stammered, "Where is this place? Can you please just let me go? This is just a TV program, isn't it? I really don't want to participate in this. I beg of you, this isn't some TV show. Arg, goddammit, you're so fucking annoying. All you've been doing is crying and screaming non-stop. For fuck's sake, just shut up. My brain's literally going to explode because of your damned crying." The last string keeping his anger suppressed had snapped, and the young man who could no longer endure the girl's sobbing finally erupted, bellowing violently. "If you want to cry, go right ahead. But leave us out of it and get the fuck out of here first. Wherever you go is your own damn business, just stop bothering us." The girl's tears abruptly stopped at the mont's ferocious roars. She looked at the mont's aggressive stance and hiccuped in shock. Her face turned a bright shade of red as she swallowed down the yelps threatening to escape her lips. In spite of how loud the commotion was, everyone in the room turned a blind eye to it, pretending to not have witnessed anything. Truthfully speaking, it was better to accept the reality of the situation as early as possible. Unfortunately, when confronted by such great, harrowing changes, most people refused to accept or adapt to the circumstances. With a bang, the castle doors slammed wide open, and a group of people successively entered the venue. Tan Zhaozhao was the last one to come inside. She was wearing a soft, orange-tinted dress, and a pure white corsage was pinned to her chest. Her expression was delicate, ever so heartrending, and, from time to time, she let out faint sobs, sniveling weakly. It was quite a pity that someone already stole her role before she could even show off the extent of her acting skills. The rookie girl had been crying for more than an hour, but she still didn't show any signs of ceasing. After being yelled at by the young man, she became quiet for less than 5 minutes, then started wailing loudly again, her body quaking with spasmodic sobs. Lin Chushi's ears had long grown numb to her incessant whining. With exactly 5 men and 5 women, there was a total of 10 people within the castle grounds. Among them were 2 newcomers, a tragic heroine, whose tear ducts didn't seem to function properly given that she wept for hours on end, and a shivering black-haired youth, who shrank into the corner like a smudge of mold ever since he came in. Once all individuals gathered together, the dull sound of a bell rang within the castle halls. Before long, a gentleman in a black suit appeared at the foot of the stairway. The man walked towards them with light, graceful steps, and greeted them with a courteous smile. "You have finally arrived. My master has been awaiting your presence for quite a long time." Now, if you will." With that, he swiveled on his heels and made his way to the second floor. Those who were familiar with these kinds of situations knew that this was a signal, a possible lead, so they followed the steward closely. As for the two rookies, although they didn't have a single clue as to what was going on, they didn't dare stray from the crowd. In the end, they huddled with the others and also advanced to the second floor. The interior of the castle was quite grand and spacious, and the staircase leading to the second floor was infinitely long, seemingly extending without end. After passing through the eternal stairway, they shuffled along a boundless, narrow corridor. The few oil lamps that hung in the corridor dimly illuminated their path, flickering ever so often. And suspended below every faint source of light were oddly peculiar oil paintings. Just why exactly did he find these paintings to be so peculiar? Well, it was precisely because the subject of the work wasn't nearly recognizable in any of the oil paintings. One minute, the painting seemed to encapsulate a scenery, and in the next, it gave life to the figure of a human being. The erratic clash of colors haphazardly streaking the canvas produced a warped image, arousing a sense of perturbation and discomfort in people. The thick carpet on the floors of the castle muffled the sound of everyone's footsteps. Aside from the hazy whispers of the glimmering flames, the entire corridor was disconcertingly still, void of any noise or voice. At the end of the corridor was a slightly ajar wooden door. The steward walked over to the door and pulled it open. He then turned around and gave a deep bow, politely holding out his hand in a gesture of invitation. Ruan Nanju stepped forward, taking the lead, and entered the room. Lin Chushi followed after him, only to soon be met with a sight to behold. As it turned out, the door had actually opened up to a dining hall. At the center of the room was a grand dining table, on which various scrumptious dishes had been arranged. And at the very end of the dining table sat their hostess, the mistress of the castle according to the steward's words. A slender woman dressed in Gothic attire. All of her garments, from her long, flowing dress to the massive hat resting on her head, were pitch black. Her complexion was of the ashen hue of a corpse, almost as deathly white as a ghost. Her deep inky eyes were unnervingly large. Under the dim lights, those soulless eyes of hers resembled a dark, inescapable abyss. Her thin lips, which were caked in rouge lipstick, were curved up into a subtle smile if that could even be considered a smile. The disturbing sight of her made the crowd's skin crawl. A strained silence fell over everyone in the room. Not a single person dared to utter a sound. Even the newcomer, who was ceaselessly sobbing just minutes ago, had stopped crying out of fear. "Please, after you," the steward's voice echoed within the dreary halls. "Do enjoy this delectable feast to the fullest." As usual, Ruan Nanju was the first to react. He found a random chair to sit in, then reached for the wet hand towel that had been served and cleaned his hands. Lin Chushi took a seat beside him. One after another, the others began filling up the unoccupied spaces. Once everyone was seated, the hostess raised a small bell and rang it, signaling the start of the meal. From beginning to end, she didn't say a word. Her eerie expression didn't even change in the slightest either. She silently picked up her knife and fork and slowly began engorging herself on the food before her. Lin Chushi observed her from the corner of his eyes. He noticed the lady's hands were a little too big in proportion to her emaciated figure. Her knuckles were protruding, and her brittle fingernails were a pale blue-gray color. With those gnarled hands, she elegantly gripped onto the cold cutlery and neatly sliced into the rare steak on her plate. Before stabbing a piece with her fork, she then carefully brought the fork to her wide, scarlet mouth, blood from the meat dripping from her lips. What he had just witnessed was far too nauseating that it immediately caused Lin Chushi to harbor qualms over whether the hostess was even human. no longer able to endure that sickening scene. Lin Chushi averted his eyes, only to notice that Tan Zhaozhao, who was sitting next to him, was staring obsessively at the mistress. It was as if she had been bewitched by the devil. Lin Chushi coughed lowly, drawing Tan Zhaozhao's attention back to the present. "Eat," murmured Lin Chushi. Tan Zhaozhao seemed to have become aware of her own abnormal behavior. After giving him a slight nod, she lowered her head and proceeded to cut into her steak, refusing to stare at the other anymore. The meal was surprisingly delicious. Every dish, from the appetizers to the desserts, burst with rich, tantalizing flavors. If not for their current predicament, they would have undoubtedly savored every bite of the fine delicacies in front of them. Unfortunately, no one really had the appetite to relish such gourmet food right now. Of course, the only exception was Ruan Nanju, whose guts were as big as ever. He didn't express the slightest discomfort or disinclination at eating, ever since he sat down at the table. In fact, he gobbled up all the food, licking all the plates spotless. And still had space for fruits. Eventually, the situation turned into one where everyone simply gaped at Ruan Nanju's great appetite. Yet, as if he didn't perceive anything unnatural or awkward about the current mood, he simply continued stuffing himself to his heart's content. Once he was done eating, he calmly placed his knife and fork down and wiped his mouth clean. Only after the last person finished their meal, did their hostess quietly stand up from her chair and saunter out the door. The steward announced, "Dear guests, my master shall now escort you all to what you have long awaited. If you will, do follow her." The crowd hurried after the madam, ascending the ever-winding staircase. God knew just how many levels existed in the ancient castle. As he climbed up the stairs, Lin Chushi kept count of the floors he had passed. The hostess led them to the 7th floor in the end. She swiftly advanced to the end of the hall of the 7th floor, opened a door, and stepped inside. Not daring to follow her in, everyone chose to observe the situation from outside the door. Judging from the interior, the room before their eyes was most likely a studio. There were countless painting tools, brushes of various sizes, wooden palettes to blend pigments, scattered sketches, containers of paint, stained drop cloths, and more, but the most eye-catching of them all was the standing canvas that was veiled by a cotton tarp, conspicuously situated at the center of the room. Just then, the steward's voice rang out from behind them, "The long-anticipated painting will be completed in a couple of days. During this period, please keep your inquisitiveness in check. We would appreciate if you did not run amok. Take this time to admire the ravishing view of this majestic castle instead, if you will. Once my master has completed the painting, you will be able to appraise it with your very own eyes." Upon hearing the other's speech, Lin Chushi finally identified their roles. According to the steward, they were patrons who admired the madame's painting skills, and they were to spend a few days in this castle, until the mistress' art piece was completed. Given this information, he suspected that the key to leave had something to do with the mistress' final painting. "You mustn't disturb my master while she creates her masterpiece," informed the steward. "Now, the day is growing darker, so please return to your respective chambers to rest." With that, he ushered everyone back downstairs. Their living quarters were located on the 3rd floor, with one room per person. The keys were randomly assigned to individuals, and the printed numbers on the keys corresponded to room numbers of their new lodgings. Lin Chushi was quite lucky, for his bedroom was directly across from Ruan Nanju's. Unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for Xu Xiaocheng, seeing that she was the only one assigned to a room in the far corner. She bitterly clutched the key in her hand and disgruntledly grumbled to herself for hours. The bedroom was quite large and spacious, furnished with beautiful decorations. Whether it was the cozy bed that was of an incredible size, or that ornate dressing table that was designed intricately, everything was simply breathtaking. The whole bedroom reflected a touch of old times, transporting him back to the age of Renaissance. The mistress of the castle seemed to be very fond of paintings. To the point she even put up a painting in the middle of the room. The art depicted a desolate castle assailed by an obscuring curtain of rain. The mood of the painting was quite dark and unsettling. Lin Chushi looked at the painting for but a moment, before removing it from the wall, placing it on the ground, and covering it with a cloth. Because the clue they received was the woman of the rain, Lin Chushi had reason to believe that all paintings in this world were ill-omened. After washing up, he returned to his bed. Before going to sleep, he checked his phone out of habit, unsurprisingly. There was no signal. He then lay in bed for a while. Time ticked by, infinitely slowly. At long last, Lin Chushi got up and headed to the room across from his, knocking lightly on the door. With a creak, Ruan Nanju opened the door for Lin Chushi. Nanju. Lin Chushi stepped inside, only to notice there was also a painting in Ruan Nanju's room. The art piece seemed to emphasize the shrubs at the gate of the castle, and just like the painting in his own room, the weather was rainy and gloomy. Well then, Ruan Nanju returned to Lin Chushi's side after washing his hair. Water droplets clung to his hair, gradually trailing down his neck. As he dried off his damp hair, he asked, "What did you find?" "She looks too similar to the woman of the rain." Lin Chushi started. "It's as though she came straight out of the painting itself." Ruan Nanju mused thoughtfully. Indeed. Although he hadn't stated it outright, it was clear that Lin Chushi was referring to the hostess. Anyone who laid eyes on both the woman of the rain and the mistress of this ancient castle would surely associate them to each other. The resemblance was simply too uncanny. Ruan Nanju pointed towards the painting hanging on the wall. "Do you also have one in your room?" Lin Chushi nodded. "Yes, but the image is completely different. It's a painting of an old castle." "Remove it," instructed Ruan Nanju. "I've already done so," Lin Chushi replied. "What about Tan Zhao Zhao?" Ruan Nanju said. "I'll go over and check on her later. If anything, I might tell her to come over and sleep here for the night instead." Lin Chushi hummed in understanding. "Ruan Nanju, you don't have anything to say?" Lin Chushi thought Ruan Nanju was inquiring about any clues, so he simply shook his head, indicating that he hadn't found any other leads, and said that he'd look again tomorrow. Ruan Nanju. "Forget it, it doesn't matter." Truthfully speaking, if he had a choice in the matter, Lin Chushi would rather live with Ruan Nanju right now, because the both of them tended to depend on each other. Take care of one another. However, he still had to take into consideration Tan Zhao Zhao, who genuinely needed to be looked after and protected. With that in mind, Lin Chushi had no choice but to suck it up and yieldingly accept current arrangements. After chatting with Ruan Nanju for some time, Lin Chushi returned to his own room. But upon entering the room, he was paralyzed to the spot. Unable to take his eyes off the painting on the wall, the very painting that was now back at its original position despite having been removed from the wall a while ago. After a long, painful second of silence, Lin Chushi stepped forward to take the picture off the wall, once again. This time, he didn't merely push it to the corner of the room and drape a cloth over it, rather, he stuffed the painting inside a drawer before propping a bulky stool against it. As the night fell, the whispers of a tempestuous storm arrived. Lin Chushi lay in bed, listening to the bitter cries of the slight breeze blowing relentlessly, rustling the leaves at the treetops. A magnificent crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling of his bedroom. Plagued by insomnia, Lin Chushi stared vacantly at the unlit chandelier above, his mind beginning to wander elsewhere. He knew that he should go to sleep, but he couldn't seem to fall asleep at all. He just wished he could empty all of his thoughts and knock himself unconscious, but with each passing second, he became restless, even more awake. The wind outside grew stronger. Its ominous howls grew louder and louder, more alarming. Lin Chushi suddenly caught the faint scent of rain in the air. That uniquely fresh and earthy fragrance produced when smatterings of rain fell on dry soil. At first, the smell was quite mild, but it grew even more intense, eventually pervading every corner of his room. Within moments, Lin Chushi's nostrils were violently assaulted by that overbearingly thick, damp odor. Lin Chushi had been staring fixedly at the ceiling for ages, and before he knew it, a dark patch of water started to appear above his head, clearly visible against the white walls. He vigorously rubbed at his eyes, believing they were playing tricks on him. Yet, the damp stains were still there, in the same exact spot clearly. This wasn't just a figment of his imagination. Shouldn't there have been another room above his own? How could water be leaking? A dreadful feeling of unease washed over Lin Chushi, as he gradually became aware of the foreboding situation. The murky water stains grew darker and more pronounced, seemingly distorting right before his eyes. Not daring to continue lying down in bed anymore, he quickly got up and switched on the lights. With a flash, the whole room lit up. As soon as the lights came on, Lin Chushi looked back at the ceiling, only to find that it was utterly spotless. There was nothing there. Was it merely a hallucination? Or a foreboding sign? Lin Chushi decided to turn the lights back off. Sure enough, the black stains reappeared in the darkness. The spatters were much larger than before, and they soon began warping bizarrely, taking shape of a woman's profile. Lin Chushi flicked the lights back on. He scanned the area, then walked over to the window, unlocking it and pulling it open. It had begun showering outside. The falling rain wasn't particularly heavy, but its dainty pitter-patters were loud and clear. The cool droplets hit the leaves ever so often, producing a crisp, steady rhythm. Lin Chushi peered at the scenery outside the window, focusing on the hazy garden veiled by the delicate curtain of rain. Hidden within the obscuring depths of the garden was a dark figure, wearing a raincoat and bucket hat. It stood still in the midst of the shrubbery and silently gazed at the old castle, like a lingering guest waiting to enter the premises, like a secretive owner inspecting their own home. But a closer look at the indistinct figure revealed that it was merely the shadow of a tree. The human-like shape grew vague and blurry, soon vanishing completely as it faded into the tree's silhouette. It seemed that Lin Chushi's nerves were starting to get the best of him, conjuring rather frightful illusions that deceived his mind. Chapter 41. The framed painting. If one had encountered such a situation in the real world, they probably would have brushed it off, thinking they were being overly sensitive, fretting over nothing. Alas, this wasn't the real world but the treacherous world beyond the door. As a result, Lin Chushi couldn't help but overthink the situation, even if it merely turned out to be a part of his own delusions. He carefully scrutinized the scenery outside the window, confirming that the dark figure within the garden had truly vanished before returning to bed. He didn't dare turn off the lights this time, and in the brightness of the room he tried falling asleep. Lin Chushi was still plagued by restlessness for a while. But once he recalled that serene sensation that spread through his body every time he slept next to Ruan Nanju, his consciousness began to grow hazy and his eyelids fluttered slightly. Ruan Nanju truly was the only drug that could cure him of his insomnia, Lin Chushi vaguely thought as he drifted off to shallow sleep. The following morning, Lin Chushi awakened to the chimes of the clock. Now that it was bright and early, he planned to find Ruan Nanju after washing up and getting ready. It was obvious that Lin Chushi did not sleep well last night, and the massive dark circles underneath his eyes served as proof of that. He stared into the mirror, gawking at the unfamiliar man before him. Although the face was different, the aura around him was quite similar. If not all, the more he studied himself, the more similarities he could spot between his current appearance and his original one. Once he finished changing his clothes, Lin Chushi exited his room and knocked on Ruan Nanji's door. The door slowly opened with a creak, but contrary to expectations, the one behind it was actually Tan Zhaozhao. Her face was even uglier than Lin Chushi's right now. She looked as though she didn't get a wink of sleep last night. Upon seeing Lin Chushi, she grouchily greeted him with a monotone good morning. Ruan Nanju had also got out of bed to wash up, and he had just walked out of the bathroom when he heard Lin Chushi's voice. With glimmering water droplets still clinging to his damp hair, smoothly sliding down his sharp jawline, he turned around and pleasantly greeted the other, morning. Glaring hatefully, Tan Zhaozhao huffed with rage and stomped towards the unoccupied bathroom. Lin Chushi was rather puzzled at her angry behavior. But he soon discovered the reason for Tan Zhaozhao's grumpiness. The girl had actually slept on the floor of the room for the whole night. Her pitiful-looking bed was arranged right next to Ruan Nanji's large, incredibly comfy bed. You made her sleep on the floor? Lin Chushi stared incredulously at the ground for a few minutes. Where else would I let her sleep? Ruan Nanju shrugged nonchalantly. I don't like sleeping in the bed with others. Lin Chushi. He thought back on the countless nights he spent sleeping in the other's bed, snuggling right up to him, hugging him tightly. Perhaps he heard incorrectly, because Ruan Nanji's statement made absolutely no sense. Ruan Nanju added, "You're the only exception." Yep, he really must be hearing things because the other was still speaking nonsense. At Ruan Nanji's awfully suggestive and brazen statement, Lin Chushi awkwardly changed the subject. Ahem, so did you sleep well last night? Extremely well, Ruan Nanju replied. The bed was quite comfortable. The huge bed was truly too snug. Anyone who experienced its soft coziness would never want to leave. Yet, no matter how comfortable the mattress was, Lin Chushi doubted anyone in this situation had the heart to genuinely appreciate it like Ruan Nanju. After she finished brushing and washing, Tan Zhaozhao came out of the bathroom and began grumbling about how cruel Ruan Nanju was, how he couldn't even be considered human. To think he actually told a frail lady like her to sleep on the floor. Because of him, her entire boy was now aching. At first, Ruan Nanju blatantly ignored her, but seeing that she wouldn't stop whining anytime soon, he then said, "Would you like to sleep on the bed tonight?" A pleasantly surprised Tan Zhaozhao, "Really? Do you really mean it?" A calm Ruan Nanju, "I can just sleep with Linlin." Tan Zhaozhao, "You shameless, shitty couple." Of course, when it came down to it, even if she hated sleeping on the floor, she didn't dare accept his offer. Yesterday, she felt that something was terribly amiss. So she immediately dashed for Ruan Nanji's room out of fear, deciding to stay the night no matter what. If she truly dared to sleep alone, why in the world would she run to this bastard's room and suffer sleeping on the floor in the first place? Breakfast took place upstairs. Lin Chushi had originally assumed that the mistress and the steward were the only residents of this castle, so he didn't expect there to be other servants as well. After bringing in their meals, the servants withdrew from the area, ever so quickly and quietly. They didn't carry the slightest expression on their faces throughout the entire time. With those wooden looks on their faces, they resembled blank marionettes that were unable to move on their own accord, mere emotionless puppets whose actions were prompted and manipulated another's hands. The mistress of the castle, who they had met the evening before, also appeared in time for breakfast. Still dressed in her sleek black dress and gaudy black hat, she sat silently by the arched window. indolently degusting the exquisite meal, her gray, contorted hands gracefully bringing the food to her rouge-stained mouth. A stifling silence plagued the mood of the dining hall. The atmosphere was frighteningly solemn. Not a single person dared to utter a word, much less initiate a conversation with the reserved madam. Fortunately, once the meal ended, the mistress noiselessly drifted out as before, once again vanishing from their sight. According to the steward, she had departed for the atelier at the top of the castle. The steward then informed them of a few places they were forbidden from entering. The first place that was off limits was the art studio at the top of the castle, the very one the mistress left for. The second place that was prohibited from them was the warehouse on the 6th floor, where all unfinished paintings were stored. Apart from those two places, they were free to venture wherever they desired. However, they should, at all times, keep in mind that the mistress detested it when others touched her precious paintings. Everyone carefully etched the steward's reminder into their minds, with some even going as far as to precisely writing down his notice in their journal, lest they should miss a word and make a grave mistake. After delivering his word of advice to the guests, the steward then excused himself, leaving the 10 silent individuals in the quiet dining hall. "I am going to check out the situation. Anyone want to come along with me?" Someone in the crowd finally proposed, wanting to find any possible clues on the key. At once, everyone began looking for a partner to team up with all individuals forming groups of 2. Just when Lin Chushi was about to ask Ruan Nanju if he wanted to pair up, he saw the weeping newcomer shyly approach Ruan Nanju and tentatively whisper, "Brother, do you have a partner? Can you take me along with you? I am so scared." The young lady wasn't lacking in appearance at all. Her delicate and lovely features made onlookers' hearts clench with pity, making it hard to them to refuse any of her requests. But who exactly was Ruan Nanju? He was a professional crossdresser, a through-and-through male who was even more feminine than any female. A man who would very much rather play the role of a drama queen than a chivalrous prince. Put simply, he was someone who played the role of a tragic heroine far better than the sniveling girl before him. That being said, even Lin Chushi could clearly tell Ruan Nanju's heart wasn't moved in the slightest. In fact, the man actually looked rather repulsed, as though he had just swallowed something utterly unpalatable. "No," Ruan Nanju rejected, awfully bluntly. Once again, the young woman began to cry waterfalls. "But I am so scared." "I'll try not to hold you back." Ruan Nanju quirked a brow, before furtively casting a meaningful glance at Tan Zhaozhao. Tan Zhaozhao's eyes glinted with understanding. Immediately, she stood up, walked over to the girl, and said, "Sorry, but I already asked him yesterday. You should probably look for someone else." A trace of resentment flashed in the young woman's eyes when she saw Tan Zhaozhao. She seemed to want to say more, but Ruan Nanju abruptly got up and beckoned Tan Zhaozhao over, signaling it was time for them to leave. Tan Zhaozhao unhesitatingly followed him out the door. Lin Chushi, who was sitting at the sidelines the entire time, also left the room soon after, under the pretense of having something to do. It seemed that there were many advantages to Ruan Nanju cross-dressing. At least, he didn't have to worry about being approached by a pitiable girl who wanted to team up with him. "There's something off about that newcomer," stated Ruan Nanju after stepping out. "Why? What's wrong with her?" Tan Zhaozhao, on the other hand, thought the girl was quite normal. All she did was cry so miserably yesterday. Ruan Nanju glanced at Tan Zhaozhao. "So you don't think it isn't strange that someone who cowers and cries at every little thing has the courage to approach me like that and suggest that we team up?" Tan Zhaozhao raised her eyebrows. "That is true. Ruan Nanju's divine beauty could rival that of a great god, but the diabolic aura he radiated was far from that of a benevolent saint. He was practically the living embodiment of despotism and antagonism. Like a bewitching flower hidden within the depths of the jungle. He was a gorgeous existence that warned others not to draw too close unless they wished to be pricked by its poisonous thorns. He might be displayed signs of weakness while disguised as a woman. However, dressed as a man, there was absolutely nothing about him that was weak. Just the mere sight of him casually sitting down with arched brows caused people to shrink back, not daring to approach him. Even Lin Chushi couldn't even imagine having the courage to ask such a domineering man to partner up with him. Maybe lust won over her in the end. As Tan Zhaozhao and the others walked through the shadowy corridor, they observed the paintings at the side. Again, it's only a maybe. Ruan Nanju nonchalantly replied. No more than 10 people have ever taken the initiative to ask me to team up with them, and not a single one of them was a rookie. Likewise, she isn't an exception. Pretending to be a complete novice had both its advantages and disadvantages. On one hand, other people were more likely to let their guard down around them. On the other hand, if their lies were ever seen through, they would undoubtedly become an outcast rejected by the entire team, the target of everyone's negativity and suspicion. After all, the others wouldn't know why that person disguised themselves as a newcomer or what their true intentions were. The castle was of such gigantic size that someone was bound to get lost in it. Just the second floor alone had countless rooms spread throughout the dim halls. As they made their way from the second floor to the third floor, quietly taking in the melancholy splendor and artistic ambiance, they noticed that the one thing the floors of this castle had in common was the various abstract paintings decorating every part of the castle's interior. There was even one in the lavatory. Lin Chushi wasn't, by any means, an art aficionado. He didn't know much about art, nor did he know how or why artists created the pieces they did. Nevertheless, if there was one thing that he did know for certain, it was that these distorted paintings before his eyes gave rise to a terrible sense of dread and unease within him. If he could, he'd rather cover those unsettling paintings with a white drop cloth, completely burying them out of sight. We aren't allowed to touch those paintings, isn't that right? Tan Zhaozhao recalled the steward's words. No, not exactly. Ruan Nanju responded. Did you pay attention to what he said? Lin Chushi repeated the steward's exact statement. The mistress detests it? That's right, but just because the mistress dislikes when others touch her paintings, doesn't mean we aren't allowed to touch them at all. Ruan Nanju stepped forward, stopping right in front of a painting. All of a sudden, his brows knitted into a deep frown. Seeing his unnatural reaction, Tan Zhaozhao wondered, what's the matter? Nothing, dismissed Ruan Nanju. Do you have knowledge in art? Tan Zhaozhao shook her head in regret. Unfortunately no, I am not too familiar with it. Ruan Nanju sighed heavily. Same. It seems that none of us will be able to interpret or extract anything useful from these paintings. Let's go upstairs and have a look around. Lin Chushi grunted in assent. Thereafter, the group of 3 started climbing the stairs to the upper level. The staircase was crafted from deep, alluring mahogany wood that amplified their faint footsteps. Every step they took issued a crisp clacking sound that echoed within the dreary castle grounds. There was more than one pathway to the top of the castle. There were even 2 old, moldering stone stairways on opposite sides of this dismal castle, leading from the first floor all the way to the roof. Most of the rooms in this ancient castle were locked, with only a few being accessible to outsiders. Almost all of the unrestricted rooms resembled small art galleries, where a wide variety of deranged and surreal artworks were chaotically scattered all over, arranged in an abstract manner. As before, these art pieces left viewers completely mystified at its ambiguous nature. musing over whether these vague paintings captured the haunting figure of a human or were merely a reproduction of a blurred landscape. They were in the midst of discussing going to the top floor of the castle to check the atelier, when a sudden, clamorous shriek erupted from downstairs. The voice belonged to a woman. Before they knew it, her plaintive cry had abruptly ceased. By the time the others arrived at the scene, there was no one there. Only an empty stairwell. Who screamed just now? A middle-aged man in the crowd asked, bewildered. We don't know. We also just got here. Lin Chushi then wondered, which floor did you come from? The middle-aged man answered, the 3rd floor. Lin Chushi said, we were on the 6th floor. That means the scream came somewhere between the 3rd and 4th floors. The others gradually began flooding the area because of the commotion. It wasn't long before they identified who amongst them had screamed. It was Xiao Su. We formed a team earlier. A man retold his story, his expression fraught with terror. She just said that she was going to bathroom, but she suddenly disappeared. What floor were you two on? Inquired Lin Chushi. The top floor. The man swallowed hard on his saliva. There weren't any bathrooms on the top floor, so she decided to go downstairs. It appeared that she ended up somewhere between the 3rd and 4th floors before vanishing with a cry. Evidently, there was no hope for her survival. After all, within these nightmarish worlds beyond the doors, sudden disappearances equated to death. It's just that no one knew was how exactly she had elicited death in the first place. Let's continue looking around. Ruan Nanju stated, we might be missed something. This was the only probable explanation. The man, who had lost his partner in mere minutes, also lost his composure. The matter having gravely affected him. Still in a shock, he quaveringly joined another duo. Ruan Nanju glanced at Lin Chushi and said, shall we check out the top of the castle? Lin Chushi instantly agreed, sure. At the side, Tan Zhaozhao muttered under her breath, you two truly just dive head first into danger without a care for the world. To think you guys aren't even worried about the risks, or afraid of things going wrong. Ruan Nanju, who caught her words, indifferently stated, risks and dangers are only natural. And tragic accidents can happen anytime, anywhere. At times like these, retrieving the key at the earliest time possible is our greatest priority. Your way of thinking, on the other hand, is like that of a rookie, and it is that very mistaken mindset that'll land you in deeper trouble. It's important to bear in mind that there are things that are simply unavoidable. The inevitable will forever be inevitable. Tan Zhaozhao snorted and spoke no more. Such things were easier said than done. It was extremely hard for her to remain calm and collected as Ruan Nanju in the face of death and tragedy. Who knew how just many perilous and sinister experiences she'd have to suffer in these door worlds to build up even half of his tolerance. They climbed all the way up, soon reaching the 8th floor. The highest level of the castle. A rather quaint garret existed at the very peak of this castle, unsurprisingly bestrewn with a myriad of paintings. Yet, these particular works of art seemed slightly different from the ones put on display downstairs. Lin Chushi studied them for a while, before coming to a realization, have these just been painted? Ruan Nanju sniffed the air, it appears so. They smell of fresh paint. Tan Zhaozhao steadily approached a single painting, coming to a full stop right before it. A slight look of doubt crept over her features the longer she stared. After a moment of hesitation, she uncertainly called out to the others, come and have a look at this painting. Isn't it a bit strange? Lin Chushi walked over to Tan Zhaozhao and examined the painting she claimed to be strange. The painting was, indeed, very strange. Dull colors melted into each other, creating the distorted image of a woman's back. Her twisted figure stretched boundlessly, blending with the bleak background and warping into a dark, inescapable vortex of stairs. What does it look like to you? Asked Tan Zhao Zhao. A woman's back? All artworks here were somewhat void of form and unrecognizable in subject. A fragmented creation of vague complexity and mysterious ambiguity that aroused multiple interpretations from viewers. And yet, this painting here was obvious at a glance. Without even needing to think, both Lin Chuxi and Tan Zhao Zhao instantly identified the subject matter of this artwork. The blurred painting captured a frightened woman trying to escape an endless stairway. She seemed to be chased after something, or someone. For her fleeing figure reflected the unspeakable dread and despairing terror that had overcome her. It's freshly painted, Ruan Nanjis' voice sounded from behind them. The paint hasn't dried yet. Tan Zhao Zhao and Lin Chuxi shared a look, the same exact thought crossing their minds. Tan Zhao Zhao rubbed her arms fiercely in an attempt to quell her raising goosebumps and grimaced. This can't possibly be. It probably is. Ruan Nanju replied. How about we call over that girl's partner over and let him have a look? As he continued to stare fixedly at the painting, he slowly added, see if this is his missing teammate. Xiao Su had only wanted to go to the bathroom. She had just descended from the 7th floor and hurriedly began searching for a washroom on the 6th floor. Thankfully, there were many lavatories in this ancient castle. She quickly found what she had been looking for at the end of the hall of the 6th floor. Having finally entered the lavatory, Xiao Su pulled open the toilet cover and turned to sit down. When she caught sight of a strange portrait hanging on the wall before her. It was a gangling woman, wearing a black hat and a dark gown. Her complexion reflected a dull, death-like pallor. And her hooded, downcast eyes created an alluring melancholy. Light rain droplets trickled down her cheek from the brim of her hat. Her gaunt face, chalk pale in hue and abnormally long in length, aroused an inexplicable sense of distress and panic in others. Most of the paintings in this dark castle were vague and abstract, practically unrecognizable in subject and rather difficult to interpret. However, the subject that was depicted in this painting right before her eyes was glaringly clear. It was so distinguishable and realistic that Xiao Su even doubted if this was actually a self-portrait of the mistress of the castle, and not the very mistress herself. This painting might hold some important clues. Xiao Su then straightened her back and stepped towards the portrait, wanting to get a better view of it. Yet, once Xiao Su approached the painting, something curiously bizarre happened. It was as if something had taken a hold of her very soul, sinfully compelling her to reach out and touch the painting. Only after she came to her senses did she realize what she was doing. It was far too late, for her palm was already pasted on the portrait before her. Overcome with shock, Xiao Su frantically withdrew her hand. Her palm was clammy, damp with hint of fresh, earthy rain. She raised her head back up, only to see that the image had changed. Xiao Su stared at the painting before her, her eyes growing wide with pure fear. The painting was still the same as before, ever so bleak and drizzling, but the ghostly woman was nowhere to be seen. At this, Xiao Su didn't dare stay here any longer. She quickly turned on her heels and made a run for it. Wanting to find her teammate, she dashed upstairs, her feet clomping heavily on the wooden boards. All that could be heard in the dim stairway were her loud footsteps and her labored pants. Clomp, 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 the clear sound of her own wild footsteps reverberating throughout the castle grounds thundered in her ears. Up the stairs, Xiao Su ran and ran and ran for a very long time, and yet the stairs in front of her seemed to show no signs of end. It was as though she was merely running in circles, trapped in this nightmarish, eternal cycle. Everything around her stood ever so still, like a static image captured at an instant of time. Only the stairs before her extended far into the never-ending darkness. Ha, 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 Xiao Su violently gasped for air, taking in deep ragged breaths. Her body was sweating intensely and her energy had left her. Her legs finally caved underneath her and she could no longer run. But in spite of her collapsing, the sounds of footsteps still echoed all around her, replaying like a broken record. No sooner, Xiao Su caught the faint stench of rain permeating in the air. Her whole body was immediately racked with tremors of horror. Paralyzed to the spot, she shakily turned her head around, only to see a dark shadow, quietly standing at the foot of the stairs. No, rather, it wasn't a dark shadow. It was a woman cloaked in black. Her entire body was drenched with rain, and her face was bleached of color or emotion. She held a massive picture frame in her right hand, and with her large, coal-black eyes, she stared dead at the shivering Xiao Su, her hollow gaze resembling an inky abyss. Xiao Su shuddered violently. She opened her mouth, but it was as if her voice was clogged in her throat. No matter how much she wanted to scream for her life, she simply could not. Anxiously mustering the last of her strength, she let out a strangled cry and agonizingly crawled forward with her hands and feet. Clack, clack, clack. The sharp clopping of brisk footsteps echoed in the stairway once again. Except, this time, the footsteps were awfully unhurried, dreadfully calm, tormentingly slowly drawing nearer to Xiao Su. As if a freezing bucket of water had been poured on top of her, Xiao Su's body was soaked in cold sweat. The last of her strength had been exhausted, completely extinguished like a weak flame. She could only sink helplessly to the ground and lie there like a mired puddle. The woman stoically strode towards Xiao Su, eventually halting right before her and blankly staring down at her. Despite their surroundings being gray and desiccated, water continuously flowed down her lanky figure, occasionally dripping onto Xiao Su's body. Xiao Su peered up feebly and saw the other slowly raise the picture frame. An indescribably crooked smile soon crept onto the woman's pale, emotionless face, her garish scarlet lips eerily curved up, soon splitting across her colorless cheeks into a disturbingly wide arc. With a flourish of her sleeves, the grinning woman swung the frame down, mercilessly smashing it against the powerless girl. Ah! A raw, wretched shriek ripped from Xiao Su's throat. Ominous darkness loomed threateningly over her, drowning her in murkiness. Her body started to turn cold. Her consciousness began to blur, and everything around began to melt into the shadows, and then, the world went black. The male partner, who was downstairs, quickly rushed to the top floor of the castle and soon confirmed Lin Chushi and the others' suspicions. That's her! That's her! Upon seeing the image, the man started yelling hysterically. Pure terror dyed his features. This is what she was wearing. What if this picture was painted yesterday? A quivering voice sounded from the crowd. How can you be so sure? It can't be yesterday. The man was utterly devastated. His expression crumbled apart, and his body looked to be seconds away from collapsing. He wanted to touch the painting, but he dared not reach out. She wasn't wearing these clothes yesterday. She changed into these clothes today. The castle did, indeed, provide them with new clothes to change into. And every outfit was absolutely stunning. Lin Chushi also saw fresh, fancy clothes in his own drawer, but like the others on the team, he didn't dare change into them after all. This was a world of horrors. Who knew what could happen if they changed into those clothes? The one thing no one could understand, though, was why the girl named Xiao Su suddenly wore these clothes. She was turned into a painting. The man began mumbling to himself, unintelligibly repeating the same sentence. She was turned into a painting. What were you doing before she went to the bathroom? Despite having realized the gravity of the situation, Ruan Nanju was still cool and collected. He calmly urged, "Tell it to me carefully." The man shivered. "We didn't do anything. We didn't do anything. We just came up here to look at the paintings, and then she went off to the bathroom. Ruan Nanju continued. Were there any particular paintings that struck out to you? The man shook his head. Ruan Nanju then said, "Come. Let's go take a look at the bathroom on the 6th floor." With that, they all headed for the female's restroom on the 6th floor. A round of inspections revealed there to be nothing particularly noteworthy in the bathroom. However, a haunting sense of incongruity kept pricking the back of Lin Chushi's mind. Ruan Nanju's brows were also knitted into a frown, clearly indicating that he felt something was amiss. Wait a minute. Lin Chushi suddenly realized something. He scanned the area once more, and finally pinpointed the source of oddity. Why are there no paintings in this room? As soon as he said this, everyone noticed that something was wrong. Almost every spot in this castle displayed paintings. Whether in the washrooms, bedrooms, studios, corridor, practically every imaginable nook and cranny within these castle grounds. There was at least one framed painting that was bound to be hung up. Yet, there were no paintings in the washroom they were inside. The entire area was scoured. But there wasn't a single trace of a painting. That is certainly the case. Ruan Nanju mused. Or is it not that there was never one in here in the first place, but that the painting was taken away? No one had the answer to this question. And the only person who knew the truth had long become an unmoving painting. Deafening silence fell over the crowd like a suffocating blanket. The dull chimes of the castle bells shattered the dead stillness, signaling the time for lunch. Thereupon, the crowd began making their way towards the 2nd floor. Although the atmosphere was beyond foul and despondent, they still had to fill their stomachs and rest their bodies and minds. The meal for today was, once again, steak. With the exception of Ruan Nanju, no one was in the mood to eat. Ruan Nanju's movements were very elegant and neat. The graceful manner in which he cut into his steak was simply a work of art. Like a magnificent picture of royalty. Perhaps it was because he was the only person in the room eating with such relish. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. Nonetheless, Ruan Nanju was already used to having attention, so the stares he received didn't bother him in the slightest. He calmly finished the last bite of his steak and wiped his mouth before asking, "What's the matter? Does it not suit your taste?" Lin Chushi, "It's not that I just don't have much of an appetite right now. It's delicious." Ruan Nanju looked around and chuckled pleasantly. "It may very well be our last supper." Everyone else, Lin Chushi helplessly sighed. "It's bad luck to say something like that. So, you're telling me a few auspicious words will stop one from dying?" Ruan Nanju said, "Perhaps I should have said something else then. May you have a prosperous year? Hope you live a long, blessed life. Cheers to you and your great health." Lin Chushi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Regardless, what Ruan Nanju just said made complete sense. Death never picked favorites. Those who were bound to die would, inevitably, die. It was better to just accept this and enjoy every second of life without regrets. But, unfortunately, such a thing was much easier said than done. It was extremely hard for her to remain calm and collected as Ruan Nanju in the face of death and tragedy. Who knew how just many perilous and sinister experiences she'd have to suffer in these door worlds to build up even half of his tolerance. They climbed all the way up, soon reaching the 8th floor. The highest level of the castle. A rather quaint garret existed at the very peak of this castle, unsurprisingly bestrewn with a myriad of paintings. Yet, these particular works of art seemed slightly different from the ones put on display downstairs. Lin Chushi studied them for a while, before coming to a realization.